7th Acoustics is probably a brand name that needs no introduction, as their IEM that came out last summer, Supernova, has pretty much been a mainstay in this market. It definitely hasn't lost any popularity in its sales volume or its chatter just around this hobby. They really hit the nail on the head with that set. It's all balanced armatures, it has a warm, balanced, smooth sound signature. It became an instant classic and a super strong competitor in the just about $1,000 or sub $1,000 price class. Now here we are a year later, and 7th Acoustics is hopping on the flagship train that we've seen this summer with their newest release, Asteria. Asteria comes in at $3,800 and is limited to just 77 production units total. With all the flagships that came out this summer, today we're going to take a deep dive into Asteria, break down its form, its sound, and kind of get into what you can expect if you're looking to add this set to your collection. I want to get right into it today, so without further ado, here is 7th Acoustics Asteria. So starting off, we're going to get into the build and design of this IEM. The shell on Asteria has a CNC aluminum housing with gold ceramic coating and a very pleasing iridescent blue morpho faceplate. The faceplate really stands out here. It might be one of those things that you can't fully appreciate unless you see it in person. I really hope that I'm able to capture some of its beauty in some B-roll shots. When you look at Asteria from different angles, it literally looks like there's an LED light coming from behind the faceplate that almost lights it up and changes it to like a really rich baby blue color. This IEM feels premium in a lot of different ways, but it really all just starts here in the faceplate design. This is something that's unique. I haven't seen before. The way that this thing shimmers when the light hits, it's pretty crazy. It adds just another special quality to this already limited IEM and makes it feel even more special. The Lyra cable that comes with Asteria is a 4N OCC pure silver cable with full ceramic coated brass on the termination port, the 2-pin connectors, and the splitter. The silver cable was tuned specifically for this set, which I think would add help to its fast transients and overall a cooler tonality. Say what you want about cables and how much they affect the sound or how much they don't affect the sound. I'm just upset that there's no chin slider. Regardless, it's a super solid feeling cable. It feels really durable and thick, but it's very soft to the touch. Overall, it's pretty run-of-the-mill from what you would expect from a really nice flagship IEM. I don't think it's too weighty or too thick, and it certainly doesn't feel cheap. I think it strikes a good balance here, and honestly, the ceramic coated brass kind of adds to like the gold vibe that you get with the shell. So just wrapping up the form factor and the physical build of this IEM, it definitely feels and looks premium, and that blue pretty faceplate is a real highlight for me. Lastly, in the build of this IEM, we have to talk about the driver configuration. Asteria is a 13 driver hybrid set. It has one 10mm high magnetic flux dynamic driver for the low end, and it has 12 ultra low distortion nulls BAs for the rest of the spectrum. This driver configuration of dynamic drivers teaming up with balanced armatures is something that we've seen a lot of. It's maybe only unique in the amount of BAs that are on each side. It helps create a consistent sound with a controlled but powerful low end, nice coherence and detail in the mid-range. Also, it boasts an enhanced clarity horn outlet tech that pretty much elevates treble extension, offers crispy detail, and spatial enhancements in the upper regions. All of this is to say, I think that there's one word that comes to mind when it comes to Asteria's build and design, and that is intentionality. Asteria comes with an endgame price, and it certainly has an endgame look and an endgame feel. Speaking of endgame, let's get into the endgame sound that this set boasts. Before we talk about sound, I just want to say this loud and clear that these are my subjective impressions. This is a subjective hobby, and this is how Asteria sounds to my ear. I'm going to try my best to be objective and lay out what this set is doing while also sharing a lot of my personal notes on my listening experience. This is how it sounded with my gear and in my ear, and that's subject to change based on a multitude of different conditions. That being said, I just want to firstly talk about what I paired with Asteria. Pretty much the whole time I was using my Elitech Baroque Stage medium ear tips. I ended up getting a really tight seal with these, so definitely can recommend it. Also, I was almost entirely listening on my desktop setup here at work, which is the Topping D70 Sabre going into the Burson Conductor 3X amp at the moment. And I was shooting B-roll last week, and I was using my SR35 with Asteria, although I have to say, I don't think that was a great pairing, and I definitely do not think I was getting the most out of the Asteria. SR35 is a great DAP, but it's super warm, and I don't think that paired nicely with this set, and I also just think it really didn't drive it to its full potential. I think the Asteria is definitely a harder to drive IEM, so if you're looking to use this on portable use, I hope you have something like probably the DX340 or maybe the new SP4000 would do it justice. I haven't listened with those pairings, but I'm just saying my SR35 didn't really get the job done here. With all that out of the way, let's get into the sound here. I'm going to pull up the graph really quickly and go over just its objective sound, so I'll show that on the screen, and I'm going to pull it up here on my computer. Okay, so here we have the Asteria graph. Right away, looking at this thing, you can definitely see it has a little bit of a V-shaped tuning. There is a good bit of emphasis in the sub-bass, mid-bass region, as well as that 2K upper mids region. If we want to get into the bass firstly, it definitely packs a punch, but I wouldn't consider this at all to be a bass head IEM. The sub-bass does provide a pretty satisfying rumble, but it doesn't like overpower the mid-range or take control of the sound like a bass head IEM would. I think in that regard, there's a big highlight on bass quality over bass quantity. The quantity is very controlled and smooth, but the quality is super rich and detailed. The mid bass is super exciting on this set, has a ton of detail, packs a really big punch, and just feels fast. Kick drums cut through like really strongly, especially on like heavier albums like something from Turnstile or Title Fight. The drum design delivers a huge slam on impact, especially rich, deep tom tones, and that pairs quite nicely with a detailed bass guitar and all the plucks and pulls on the strings there. Really crispy and really enhanced. Again, if you look at the graph, it definitely looks like the low end region would be a lot here, but it's really, really mature in its presentation, and it doesn't provide all of the low end that it might lead you to think it does. What's nice about that though is sometimes with a true V-shaped tuning, you get like a little bit of a veiled mid-range, and that is not the case here. I think sometimes the low end can kind of overpower some other parts of the frequency response, and here it's strong enough for it to be satisfying and give you that punch and that slam that you want, but it's not really over dominating the sound. And that moves us into the mid-range here, which on Asteria especially, I think the one word that comes to mind is natural. I found the mid-range to have an extremely immersive quality to it. Kind of makes some of the songs and records that you love more of a world that you step into as opposed to an album that you're listening to. Again, I got a really great seal, and then that paired along with this spatial imaging that you see in the mid-range where a lot of these instruments are just placed so wonderfully around you. It creates a pretty unique environment, and I find myself getting really lost in a lot of the songs I was listening to. I think especially acoustic guitars like really stood out to me in the mid-range. I feel like you could literally hear the pick lightly brushing up against each string as people were strumming. It just felt so enhanced, especially with the strings on an acoustic guitar, and it stuck out in a real prominent way. The body and the resonance that came with the acoustic guitar hung on for every last second. I was listening to a lot of movie soundtracks this week, and the one of them that stuck out to me big time on Asteria was The Brutalist. The Brutalist soundtrack kind of hits all over the mid-range. There were some like lower horn instruments that were contrasted with some light, higher pitched piano. This combination on Asteria was extremely well done. Again, I think a soundtrack really sounded great on Asteria because of that instrument separation that it provided as well. And not to mention, I think that it has a very large soundstage. It just felt powerful, but it felt very accurate and very natural. All the instruments worked really well together to, again, provide just this layer of immersion that I'm always seeking when I am listening to IEMs. Again, despite its V-shaped tuning with the emphasis on the bass region as well as the upper mids, I do not think that the mid-range was veiled or hazy at all on this set. It cuts through very naturally with a lot of resonance, clarity, and detail. Moving on to the upper mid-range and the treble region here, I think this is where Asteria turns up the heat a little bit. If you guys watched our Can Jam SoCal video, you'll probably see me and Maddie's initial reaction to listening to Asteria for the first time and saying that it was a little bit spicy up there. Why don't you give me your Asteria impression since I didn't do it?
Dude, it's just so in your face. Like, we were talking about how, like, listen to something chill, you're kind of like, oh, this is 7th Acoustics, you know, laid back, very tonally driven. And then it's like, listen to some, like, old school rock or, like, rap, and you're like, Like, okay, this is a lot. This is very in your face.
However, I think that this is mostly the vibe we got because of the contrasting elements of a lot of the other flagships that are dominating the market right now, which I'll get into in a little bit. This is definitely where the other side of this tuning comes in, especially vocals up in this region come through really, really confidently, and they're right in your face. It adds a lot of excitement to the overall sound, and this is where I think Asteria is going to be the most controversial to people. I think that the engagement in the upper mids and treble region is mostly what sets Asteria apart from most of the flagships that we see right now in this market. The vocals are front and center here, and it's supported by a lot of resolution up in the air brilliance region. It really clings on the reverb well with vocals, and it's something that I was listening to and hearing for the first time on a lot of songs that I've listened to a million times. I think that a record that demonstrates all this really well is the new record by Turnstile this year called Never Enough. Never Enough features Brendan's yell, scream vocals that are already shouty, literally, and that's contrasted by a lot of really lush, chorusy guitars. These, I think, layer in quite nicely together, but I can see this becoming a little bit too much for some people. I think that Asteria pushes it right up to that line where it would be just a little bit too busy up here for some people, and I'm usually someone that would be a little bit sensitive to that. However, although maybe jarring at that first listen at Can Jam, with more extended listening time, it's actually something that I became addicted to with Asteria. I love how exciting it is up in the upper mid-range. I love how in your face some of the vocals feel, how crispy it is. I want to step away from the sound just a little bit to talk about how Asteria fits in with the flagship market that we've seen a lot of additions to in recent months. I think that most of the flagships that we saw come out this summer are much safer tunings than Asteria. Look at something like Etoile. This is a detail monster, but it has a lot of laid back and casual elements. If you look at Kronos, you see something that is smooth, powerful, and pretty warm, which is something that we see in a lot of, the $1,000 price sets, but Kronos really takes it kind of to the next level in terms of its detail. But Kronos really sets itself apart from the rest of that group with a nice balance of two things that I don't think I've seen executed so well at the same time, and that would be engagement and natural tonality. Again, I've seen one of these two things on multiple sets in this hobby, but Asteria really hits hard on both of those things, and it almost becomes versatile in a completely unique way. I love the second half of Frank Ocean's 2016 album Blonde. It features a lot of very atmospheric, calm, electronic sounding songs. When listening to these songs, you get this fantastic immersion aspect, kind of like what I was talking about with the imaging and the mid-range clarity. And that's combined with just how natural it all comes across, and really it almost does its victory lap on Frank's vocals here. A track like Close to You, which I think is track 13 on that album, is a really good example of what Asteria can provide. It's very atmospheric and chill with a pretty quick, punchy, technical drum beat, but there's stacks on stacks of vocal layers here, some auto-tuned, some in different pitches, and then obviously just his natural voice. And the way that that cuts through with this emphasized upper mid-range is really, really delicate and very, very beautiful. So even on a song that is a little bit more somber and calm in its production, it still comes through as super engaging and exciting with Asteria. Meanwhile, if you shoot over to something like, I was listening to the La La Land soundtrack because I love that movie, and the first track on that features a really busy upright bass guitar with multiple horn sections, a very busy piano, pretty in-your-face female vocals. You get kind of shouty group vocals in there as well. A song like this that's supported by a big band, busy jazz track is just so incredibly immersive with how everything was layered in, with the detail and the plucks and pulls on that bass guitar, contrasted with the delicacy of a busy piano part. I think that something like this just gives a perfect example of natural sounding instruments, wide soundstage, detailed low end and in-your-face upper mid-range, where it just collides for a pretty unique experience. It's definitely busy, but I spent days listening to Asteria for sometimes upwards of 6 to 7 hours straight, and I never found it to be fatiguing. I mean, part of that I think is the fact that I got such a great seal with the Baroques and it was very comfortable, but I never got sick of this sound. And even though it was pretty busy and maybe a little bit spicy for my personal tastes, again, it's something I kind of got addicted to and started to really fall in love with. I think I want to wrap up this video by just kind of being real and talking about if Asteria is for you. Asteria does get a big thumbs up from me, especially in terms of its sound and its build and form factor. I don't think that this is a matter of would I recommend it. I think this is more of a matter of who would I recommend this to. I will say if you're looking for something that's really relaxed and warm, that this would not be the set for you. I think you can find that in a multitude of other IEMs, but if you're looking for something that is more fast, in your face, exciting, punchy, and you want the highest level of that, then I think that Asteria would be right up your alley. I also think that if you're a treble lover and you like it a little spicy up there, I think that this would be the pinnacle endgame set to add to your collection. And this is coming from someone who generally prefers a warmer, bassier, smooth sound. But Asteria really grew on me in just how energetic it was, and it really never tired me out. I think that part of what helped with that was that the mid-range was something that I was used to and just how natural and accurate it was, and that's just something that I love in the mid-range. Asteria definitely offers something that you don't see a ton of in the flagship market, and I think that it just adds to the excitement of this set, how there's only 77 units, it has a pretty funky and cool faceplate design. I think it's the most unique IEM that's come out all year, and I think it's another certified banger to come from 7th Acoustics. Asteria, again, is $3,800 and it is available right now at bloomaudio.com, along with tons of other exciting personal audio gear. If you have any more questions about Asteria, you can hit me or any one of my friends in customer service up. We would love to chat with you about this set and maybe try and dig deeper into if this is a worthy investment for you. That would be hello@bloomaudio.com, or you can click that little chat icon on the bottom right corner of our website and we'll get back to you literally within like 5 seconds. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week for another video. Peace.